Hi everyone, I'm not in my normal studio, but this is a video I just had to make. We're going to talk about the totally brand new redesigned QuickBooks Online. A lot of existing users are sort of freaking out about the new design. Brand new users are loving it. I'm going to give you my honest feedback, but I'm going to walk you through every single thing that has changed in the last couple of months here in the middle of 2025. The very first thing I want to mention is that this new QuickBooks Online redesign does work with RightTool. So if you're a RightTool user, don't worry about it. All the tools that you love from RightTool will work 100%. We're actually making sure that RightTool continues to work on the classic mode and in this new complete redesign of QuickBooks Online. If you're unfamiliar with RightTool, don't worry about it. I'll kind of talk about it towards the end of the video. Let's get started. It actually took me a little bit of a while to make inventory about all the things that they have changed in the last couple of months. We're going to start by talking about the new UI user experience. Then we're going to talk about the banking screen. Then we'll talk about this new thing called the Customer Hub. They added a lot of things to the Customer Hub. Then we're going to talk about what changed in the report screen. Then we're going to talk about the things that they added to estimates and invoices, projects, and then a couple of interesting adds to the chart of accounts and a copy transactions button. So let's start with the user experience. So the first thing that you're going to notice is that the old page had a left navigation bar, which looked like this, and you can collapse and expand it and completely get rid of the left navigation bar 100%. So that's the sort of main thing that's the most shocking sort of change is that this left navigation bar you used to be able to get rid of 100%, and now there is a left navigation bar that you cannot get rid of. There's just no way to get rid of it. Uh, Kind of, sort of, and I will talk about that in a second. But it's sort of fixed. Like there's no button to get rid of it. Now the new create button, it's a lot smaller. It's round and it has that little plus sign. I actually kind of like that. All the features that's in the same exact place. So all the customer transactions are in the first column, vendors on the second column, team on the third column, projects on the fourth column. That's only for plus and advanced, and then other is going to have all the other transactions. So the new create menu itself, that really hasn't changed. It just kind of the button itself changed, but the menu didn't change. The QuickBooks logo in the top still takes you back to the home page, so that's good. And you get the company name right next to it with this little line in the middle. So you can see if by contrasting the old new button versus the company name and the QuickBooks logo. So that hasn't changed too drastically. So this top left part is a little bit of the same that you're used to. Now you're going to see this bookmarks menu. That's actually pretty interesting. Let's say I go to expenses and bill pay, and then I go into vendors. And let's say this page is a page that I want to go to a lot, then I would bookmark it. So I would go into the bookmarks menu and then click on bookmark current page. So by just clicking bookmark current page, it allows me to create a label next to it. So I can label it whatever I want. So by default, it's labeled vendors, which is fine. And then I click on save. And then now my vendor screen is saved. Now I'm going to go to another area of QuickBooks. Let's go into projects, for example. And then I'm going to go into bookmarks, and then I'm going to click on bookmark this page. Again, I'm just kind of following the same process here. Click on save, and then this is basically all of your custom bookmarks. Now there's an edit button next to bookmarks that you can click on, and then you can search specific pages. So let's say, for example, I want to search for bank transactions, and I click on that. So that adds it to the bookmarks. And let's say I want to go to cash flow, turn that on, and then budgets and turn that on. So I can turn on anything that I search through the customize your bookmark page, and it will add it into this bookmarks area here, whether or not you added it by hand. So you have those two options. You can either uh, actually find a specific page, add it to your bookmarks, or search it by clicking on the pencil there in the top. So that's your bookmarks page. Now, when I go into dashboard, that's sort of the home page, which you can also access by clicking on the QuickBooks logo. And you're going to see this little carousel here of logos that you can kind of scroll to the right here, and then scroll back to the left. And these are what QuickBooks is now, they changed the terminology. Now they're calling it apps. Now, even though they're not apps in a traditional sense, like before this major change, the word apps was used to talk about integrations. Now integrations are changed. Now you have this little plug icon, like a little electric plug icon, and you click on that, and it shows you my integration. So any third-party software that you have integrated with QuickBooks will now show up in my integrations. And then the term app is now used to talk about different centers inside QuickBooks. Now you can access the apps, so to speak, from clicking on any of these. So I can click on customers, and it opens this My Apps sub navigation bar. Now this one resembles the old left navigation bar, right? That was fixed, that was always here type of thing, where in the sort of in the new page you have to click on something to open up this list of apps, so to speak. So that's kind of a major change, and I think most experienced users, that's the part that they kind of got freaked out about, is that they're sort of used to always seeing this menu fully exposed with all the centers or sections or pages or whatever you want to call it, which they're now calling apps or my apps. So that's still available there. I actually like the fact that you can collapse that and open it on demand. But it doesn't show up when you first go into QuickBooks. So if I were to log in again or refresh the page, my apps navigation doesn't show up by default. I would have to click in this icon that says My Apps to kind of enable that. So it does require that extra click to click on My Apps and have this menu enabled automatically. Now there's also this concept of pinned apps, okay, which are basically these major categories, so expense and bills, or sales and get paid, or customer hub. These are all the apps, so to speak. So if you click here where it says more, you can see the three pinned apps that we have. So this is technically three pinned apps. There's the accounting app, expenses and bills app, and sales and get paid app. Now, if I click on customize here in the bottom left, I can choose which are the three pinned apps, so to speak, that I can have. Okay, so right now I have no pinned apps, which means that if I were to click on the logo and sort of go back to the beginning when I first log in into QuickBooks, I wouldn't see any immediate shortcuts in that little gray area. I do see them on the carousel up here, so if I wanted to have any specific areas that I want to be my pin app, so to speak, I would go to customize, and then let's say I would pin accounting, expenses, and sales and get paid, and I can change the order of them. So if I want sales to get paid first, and then expenses and pay bills, and accounting third, and you can only do three. Okay, it doesn't let you do a fourth one. It actually gives you a little icon telling you that you can't do any more in apps, so to speak. So, and also I'm a little bit zoomed in. So if I zoom out, okay, like to like 90%, if you see up here in the top right, where I'm zooming out, I may or may not see more zoomed apps. So how you're zoomed in matters. And one thing I found that's pretty interesting, that if I zoom in too much, like for example, I'm zoom in to like 150% in my browser, the left navigation bar actually uh, just it's not there anymore. And then I would have to click on this little hamburger icon, and then I get the more traditional sales navigation apps, which is really interesting how you actually, by just zooming in to 150% in my computer, your computer might be different, by zooming in, you actually see that change. So I'm not sure if that's on purpose or if that's a fluke, but that just I find that to be interesting, where the zoomed in version looks a lot more like the old navigation bar, just to show it here. See, in the old QuickBooks, doesn't matter how zoomed in I am or not. Actually, it doesn't disappear until 200%. But that was sort of almost always there. So it's interesting that design choice that they made. But what's different about this 150% version is that um, it covers some of the page, so it's not fixed to the left-hand side the way the other one is. But I can access everything I want from that zoomed in stage, no problem. So I'm going to zoom out. Let's do 125% where we can see this left navigation bar. So let's go back into my apps. And a couple interesting things about this is, again, I can collapse and expand that left navigation bar. I can add bookmarks straight from here. So for example, if I want to go to sales tax and I want to bookmark sales tax overview, I can click on that little icon there. And then when I go into bookmarks, it's right there, sales tax overview. Okay, and then I can click on, if I wanted to get rid of any bookmarks, I would click on that little pencil icon and get rid of it. So you can add bookmarks in multiple ways. So these bookmarks are going to be very useful, particularly for people that want to access things fairly quickly. So that's pretty interesting in itself. You also notice that these apps, so to speak, these categories of pages have icons in them. And I think that long term, what they really want is for you to identify these things through their icons. So I'm not sure how that's going to play out, but I think the icons are going to play a really, really big role in creating sort of a faster, more graphic style interface. So that's really it. The one thing that you will notice is that in the My App section, there's actually no area for reports. And you also notice that there's a brand new thing that we've never seen before called Customer Hub, which I'm going to go back and explain what all these Customer Hub features are. These are actually all brand new that came out in the middle of 2025. So we'll go to those, and you'll also see the new marketing uh, app, so to speak, which is basically an integration between QuickBooks Online and Mailchimp. So if you don't have Mailchimp already, you can explore, the different types of um, uh, number of contacts that you can add, and Mailchimp is to automatically email or market to your customers. It's pretty interesting. Again, I won't get into how Mailchimp works. Just understand that that's now sort of front and center. It's part of how QuickBooks is marketing or cross marketing their other products, and Mailchimp is the other products. And then also on their lending, you're going to see their loans and line of credit. This is not new. QuickBooks has been offering lending for a very long time, but it's now an app, so to speak. And there's also Business Tax, which is an app, which is also for the purposes of cross-selling TurboTax. So small business owners can come in here and pick different things, and then at some point QuickBooks will say, hey, we can do your taxes for you as well. Okay, even though they actually have added a couple of really interesting screens where they do like income tax summaries. So it is going to be pretty interesting for people to do tax planning. So a lot of folks using QuickBooks that maybe don't have a tax accountant or someone helping them do their taxes, there will be a lot more features added to kind of like shape the users into thinking that QuickBooks is for the purposes of helping them do their taxes, right? So it's not just a bookkeeping software; it's also tax preparation software, even though it's not. But the idea is that you can transfer this information to TurboTax with ease. Now, I don't know if you're going to be able to transfer it to TurboTax to do your own taxes, or you have to use their full service where they actually have an accountant or a customer service person that walks you through it. But these two areas, I mean, these three areas down here, business tax, lending, and marketing, they're obviously all the cross-selling apps that they have. Payroll is also technically a cross-selling app, but payroll is more traditional, actually no, as more known in the QuickBooks ecosystem. So that's the left navigation bar. One thing that I want to point out is that reports is actually its own icon, its own sort of app. It's actually, it transcended the My Apps category, I guess, because people go into reports so much. And then we're going to go into and show you the new KPI screen, which is actually brand new, came out in the middle of 2025. So we'll go back and look at that. But if you click on any of those things, you go into your regular report screen. Okay. So that's the pinned apps, the bookmarks. Now I'm going to talk about the new search function. Actually, the search function is really, really neat. So this is the new universal search. So when you put your cursor in the search screen, you can search multiple things here. You can search. So if I put check, for example, just write the word check, for example, it would actually search in three areas. It would search for any transaction that has the word check in it. So it'll check like through the memos, through the text. It will check any screens that contain the word check or could be related to check. Like for example, reconcile is shows up there. So I don't know if somebody in the back end said, hey, the word check and reconcile kind of makes sense. So that would take you into the reconcile page. But then if you go into the ones that have the plus icon, that actually creates a new transaction. So you can use the search again to search text, to search a particular page in QuickBooks, or even trigger a new transaction like these two. And if I click on show more, notice that now these are grouped into three categories. So we have all, which is going to be, all the transactions that contain the word check in it. I assume, I'm not sure exactly what this is showing. And then we have help articles that contain could contain the word check. and then some AI-based suggestions, right? So maybe, based on what you type, it's trying to, you're trying to do one of these things. I'm not sure what the criteria is for the suggestions, but then you can click on transactions and just look at the transactions. Again, I don't know where it got the word check from, or if that does, maybe that's not even using the filter at this point. And then we have the help screen. Again, not sure how the word check is connected to the search, but that's kind of what I'm seeing, that they're going with the check with the search. Now, if I put a dollar amount, if I put 500, for example, it's gonna look at all my transactions that contain 500. And then if you look at this one, there is an address that contains 500. So we'll do both, unless I put 500.00, then that's going to narrow it down to just transactions that have the 0.00. So you kind of have that, so you keep that in mind. I'm not sure how these jump to links connect to this 500 number. Again, that's kind of, maybe that part is a little bit random. You can also use a dollar sign and put 500 if you wanted to limit that and not put the 0.00, but that would also show you 5,000. Okay, so it's actually pretty good to know. If I press enter, it should do a search for 500 in this case. I'm not sure what it did, so maybe it tried to do something, but it didn't. And then it sort of defaulted to a bunch of random transactions that I don't know where it's getting the 500 from in this case. If I click on transactions, here it looks like, I don't know how this filtering works. Again, not very clear. So the connection between the top search and the search once you go inside of it don't seem to be fully connected. I don't know if that's a bug, or maybe I'm, as a user, I'm just acting weird. Now I'm going to click on go to all transactions. I'm going to show you what's really cool about the search screen once the search screen is working as designed, is that you can click here where it says amount, for example, and then you can choose, whether you want to search a total transaction, a specific line of the transaction, equals, or in between. Okay, that stuff is technically not new, but I'm just showing you that it has its own little like search screen up there. But by default, you may not see amount, date range, and transaction type. I'm going to click on filter, and actually you have a list of everything that can be used here. But if you click on customize, and this is a truly interesting part, you can actually choose by clicking here, it says filters. You can choose what filters you are going to see. Now, there's no return to default button, so I actually don't remember whether I changed, what the default is. Like, I don't see this anywhere yet. Refresh. Let me see if there's a default settings button. There doesn't seem to be one. So there's kind of two ways to do your filters. One, you can click on filter, and then you can come here and pick, everything you want to filter. So if I want to do just bills, okay, and let's say I want to look at a particular vendor. So let's grab that vendor and then click on apply. Then it will look for all my bills for City of Bayshore, right? So maybe I don't have a transaction for City of Bayshore. Let me click on get rid of that. Okay, there's a check for City of Bayshore. So the the filter work really well, and you have almost everything you may want to filter: class, locations, memos, a particular account, a product or service, a transaction type, a vendor name. All that stuff is just really easy to access. If you click on this X, you kind of get rid of that filter. But I really love the fact that you could choose the 3 default filters that show up here. That's when we'll go back to customize. And then the first thing you see is sort. This is just your sorting, if by what column you want to sort by, ascending or descending. Then we have the number of rows. So I want to do 200 because I want to see a lot of transactions. You can also do compact if you want them to be very tight. It looks kind of like a spreadsheet. And you can click on this little alternative color, which makes them easier for you to spot. So this is actually one of my favorite ways to kind of look at transactions, because I can see a lot of transactions in one page. And then here on the memo, there's a little icon for you to expand and kind of see the full memo. So if there's a lot of text to see in that memo, you can see that. Yes, that's pretty neat. Now back into customize here. When you go into columns, then this is where you can, this is the transaction columns you can pick. So if you want, let's say, type to be first, and then you want the contact to be second, and then maybe the total amount to be third, or whatever, right? So you can kind of pick and choose what order you want on these things, and then that it will reshape it in this table. So that's actually pretty awesome. And then there is a print button that I can print them. Now, I don't know if why the formatting in the print is not the same as the formatting on the screen. I kind of hoped it would be like that, but that's not available yet. It just seems to be one flat format. And then there's a button here to export the transaction list to Excel. I actually really like that because sometimes when we're searching, I just want to like you know, get my data into a spreadsheet. Now, unfortunately, there's still very limited amount of columns you can show. So again, go back into customize and columns. You're limited to just these things. You can remove some of these things if you don't want them. Like if you don't want to see some of these columns in here, you can remove them. That's an option, but the stuff that you can add is pretty limited. Now here in the filters, that's what I was talking about earlier. I can pick in what order I want the filters to be in. So for example, let's say that when I search, I do accounts a lot. Let's say that's like the number one thing I search. I search accounts and I search date range and I search transaction type. And then let's say amount is kind of the third thing that I search. So I can, X out of that. And then those are the things that I'm going to see here. So I'm going to see, accounts payable. So then I can filter everything in accounts payable, or I can go to company checking and I filter everything under company checking. So you can pick, if you're very sort of account driven when you do your searches, you can pick the account to be the very first thing you look at, and it's persistent. Every time you come back into the search for that company file, you're going to see that column there. Then we have a date range. I kind of wish this date range was exposed, that I would have to like click and then click on custom, but that's just how it is. And then we can do here this year, for example, and then just so all the transactions in the petty cash for this year, but I'll do accounts receivable. There's all the transactions, and I can go into transaction type, and I can say, well, you know what, just give me, let's say, invoices. So we go here, invoices, and I'll do, let's say, last year, apply, and then I get to see all my invoices or everything in accounts receivable for last year. I can get rid of this filter by just clicking on the X, and then I'm going to see both invoices, payments, all the things that potentially affect accounts receivable. So again, you can click on filter and go deeper into any other filter. But if you really want the top three to show immediately, and let's see if I zoom in or out. See, if I zoom out, I see two more, right? So it looks like up to five show up. Yeah, up to five. Five is the maximum that show up, and as I zoom in, they start disappearing. Okay, so you want to play with your zoom. So I'm doing control plus, control minus, or command plus, command minus on the Mac. Just be aware that depending on your zoom, your experience could change. But I love this new search feature. The only thing that I think is missing is being able to convert this into a report. That would be pretty incredible if I could just click a button and make that into a report so I can memorize the report. That would be great. Unfortunately, there's no there's no sort of path to like sort of save this search, right? So I would have to, if I come leave and come back, I would have to, click here and click here and click, like I would have to run all the filters again. So it'd be really cool if this was a report because I could memorize it. But that's essentially the new search is great. I think they went really far. Okay, so we covered these four. I want to talk about the new dashboard because that's actually pretty interesting. So when I click on dashboard, we talked about the icons here in the top. Okay, these are the app icons, so to speak. Then there's also create actions, right? So we have the centers up here, or what is calling the apps, and then we have here new transactions. And if I click on show all, yeah, actually, I could actually start a bunch of these, and then basically create a menu of a bunch of transactions. So I think it's limited to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10. So it's limited to 10. So basically, more of these things show up, and I can scroll to the right. I don't find this useful, right? Again, these create actions, I, these are all I can find in the create button. So I'm not 100% sure, who's going to use these create actions. I actually don't think it's going to be here for long. Probably into it after watching this video, they'll realize, yeah, this is pretty useful. I mean, pretty useless. So we'll get rid of that. But who knows? I mean, it's not terrible. But if I have a create button, I usually via muscle memory, it's easier for me to find it through here. But I mean, truly, if there's one thing that you do a lot, you can go into show all, and I'm gonna get rid of a bunch of these things. So let's see, I do a lot of estimates, invoices, record payments, sort of in that order. Then I click on save. Then it basically just shows me the three. top things that I could access. So could be useful. I mean, not completely useless, but I don't know. I just via muscle memory, typically I use the create button to find the transactions. Now we have this little hide financial dashboard button. They used to call this Starbucks mode, where you're like in a public place using your computer and you don't want people to like see, your bank balances and stuff like that. So you can quickly close that. Now not all of them, but a lot of these widgets you can modify. So I can click on these three little dots and say, you know what, I want to customize this widget, and then I can pick, for example, which accounts I want to show up in here, and I can even change the order. So if one account is more important than the other or whatever, and then I can see whether I want to not show anything or show the bank balances. I can do that. There's a little edit button here to take me straight into the chart of accounts, which is pretty interesting. Um, so I like, actually, not the chart of accounts, to the bank transaction screen. That's pretty interesting. Um, but that's what you see here. Now, if you click on them as well, that takes you into the register. So it's a little bit of a weird, um, confusing piece where if you edit it, um, where is it? If I customize the widget and I click on the pencil, it takes me into the banking. But if I click on it through here, it takes me to the register. I don't know. I just find that to be a little bit strange. But that's that's you know. Go to registers here allows you to also, it's kind of the same thing. It's a drop-down menu, and you can pick which one to go straight into the register. I use the register a lot, so I don't see any fundamental issues with that. Here in the three little buttons, there's link accounts. That's for you to connect a new bank account. So that's like circumventing the the screen in which you 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 go into banking to connect the banks. You can do it straight from here. You can also hide some of these widgets. So for example, this one, the sales and get paid funnel, I can click on this hide button and it will hide it. Click on confirm and I'll get rid of that. And then the other ones, I would click on the three little dots here and click on hide this widget, click on confirm. So you can get rid of any of these widgets by simply just clicking on the three little dots and hiding them. And then here at the bottom, there's an add widgets button, and then there's smart suggestions, kind of suggesting you to add specific widgets, which you can. You can just click on profit and loss, click on add to dashboard, and it adds that widget for you. Now I can just click on the plus button and then see on the widgets bar or the widgets search all the type of widgets I can add. So I can just go click happy and add everything as a widget here. Just go nuts here. I don't know how many the total, maybe 10 might be the total. Yeah, I'm just trying to click on as many things as possible. Yeah, it looks like that's pretty much done. So I'll click on save, and then that should add all or almost all the widgets in it. 12 widgets is the most I was able to do. So it adds a bunch of widgets here. If I click on add, does it let me add any more? Yes, I guess I can, yeah, I can do one more. Okay, so I did everything. So there's all my widgets here. The only thing is I don't see is a way to move them. They just show up there. Let me see if I'm missing something. So if I click on, there you go. I click on customize. So if I click on customize dashboard, this is where I can move them around. Okay, this hasn't changed. This is already from the old system, which is great, which you can resize them. Okay, so set them up in whichever way you want, or get rid of them or move them sort of to the bottom. So you have a lot of flexibility on these widgets. And again, if you don't need any of these, you just get rid of them, right? Just click on hide and get rid of them if you're not using a particular feature, or this information is not useful for you. You can do that. So that's really awesome, right? So fully customizable, add or remove widgets on demand, resize them. That's great. Okay. I want to talk about something called Zen mode. So if I click Control plus or Command plus on the keyboard, it zooms in whatever page you're in and gets rid of that sort of navigation area. So see, this is me just clicking Control 1 or Command 1 on the Mac a bunch of times. So it goes into zoom mode or Zen mode. I love this, especially for pages that contain a lot of data, like the banking feeds. I love this. So being able to do this on demand, it's absolutely awesome and fantastic. Now this new feed button, so we went to that, we looked at bookmarks, we looked at dashboard, we looked at reports, my apps, and then feed. Feed is going to be everything that's related to the AI stuff. So anything that Intuit starts doing for you automatically in terms of suggesting you to take action, or new information that comes out, or insights, so to speak. Like in this case, is talking about tax deductions. I don't know exactly you know how this works, but they're suggesting some potential tax deductions you can claim. I mean, later on I'll explore deep into what all these things mean, but essentially, feed will pop up anything new that they add, especially with artificial intelligence. So anything connected to that will be here on feed. And that's kind of like where QuickBooks wants to point your attention is, hey, log into QuickBooks, go through all the feed stuff, take actions, like whatever it is, right? Take action and then kind of check them off and finish them off. And that's what the feed is kind of meant to do, to kind of guide you or remind you of like what next steps you got to take. So that's kind of the purpose of feed. And there's some things you can't remove. I guess you have to complete the full action here. But that's business feed. So now we're going to move to the banking section. The new bank feeds has a lot of new things, and they've been updating this for the last couple of months. So I'm going to walk you through all the terminology changes, feature changes, all the new AI stuff. There's actually a lot of really cool things going on. So I'm going to go into my accounting app, so to speak, on the accounting section, or here it says my apps, and then go into bank transactions. And again, as I mentioned earlier, you definitely want to pin that, because bank transactions is probably what we do the most in QuickBooks Online. So you want to have that handy so you can access it fairly quickly. Now I'm going to collapse that. As I mentioned earlier, Control Plus or Command Plus does the zoom, the full screen. And for banking, I'm definitely always going to be in full screen because I need as much real estate as possible. I can also zoom in and zoom out using Control Plus and Control Minus. So obviously you want to be zooming in and zooming out based on what's most comfortable for your screen size and your browser. So this is probably the best configuration I have in mind, which is 100%. Now you'll notice if I switch over to the classic mode, you'll notice that they have 3 tabs: for review, which are all the pending transactions that haven't been categorized; categorize, which are all the things that you already categorized that have already been booked; and then excluded, the things that you have excluded. So for review, categorized, and excluded now has been changed to pending, posted, and excluded. So they kept excluded, but for review is pending and categorized is posted. Now you also notice that the button to save the transaction or add the transaction is called post. So they're consistent with the whole concept of posting. Now, inside each of the transactions that have been downloaded from the bank feeds, you can actually click on the drop-down menu under Action, and you have a couple of options. You can go into a split, so to split the transaction across multiple lines. Now, that's not a new feature, so to speak, but what's new about it is where it is located. So it's now inside of the drop-down menu instead of inside of the transaction when you actually click on it. Now, you're also going to see your create rule and your exclude. That's all going to be built into that drop-down menu. Now, the other thing that you might notice is there's these buttons that look like a toggle: match and categorize. So essentially, if this transaction is not a new transaction, so to speak, it's a transaction that should match something else that exists in QuickBooks, you click on match, and then it takes you into the classic matching screen, and then you go find which transaction it would match to, and then you would click on match. So that would be the manual matching process. Now, sometimes it will detect transactions that could be possible matches, and then it will show you all those possible matches. So I'll configure some of that. So for example, let's say that we have this transaction here that's $280.89. So I'll create a couple of transactions just so we can see how the match works. So let me start by creating a bill, category at random here, 280.80. We'll bring this back a couple months maybe. Click on save, and then we should X out of that. And then if the banking screen refreshes, that should be one of the matches that it will find. Okay, so because it's a perfectly same dollar amount. Now, let's say, for example, I were to create a second transaction that is similar. So let's see, let's do an expense. And let's pick a random vendor here and pick a random category. And then we'll do the same amount, 280.89. And I believe it was the checking two. Click on save and close. So if I have, now I have two transactions. Actually, it was the company savings account. So it's not going to match that one because I picked the wrong bank account. So I just got to go back and fix that. So let's open up that transaction. So now, again, we have two transactions that are possible matches. Now the matching is going to suggest two possible options. And that's kind of how matching works. It'll try to find two potential ones. So for example, you see two suggested matches. Scroll up here, and I can click on the suggested matches found. So there's an actual hyperlink there. It'll open up the sort of the sub menu, and then it'll give you the two transactions that were found. And it has the business feed logo, the Intuit Assist logo. This is the AI logo, as if AI is doing anything. I honestly don't know. AI is technically not doing anything. There's a button here that says see what changed, and assuming that something changed on this screen, and then maybe they'll explain. But historically, if you have two transactions that have the same dollar amount, bills or expenses or whatever, as long as they match the date range, right? So here's the date range that it will use. So it will go up. It'll go up about 7 days, and it'll go backwards about 3 months. So as long as it's within that range, it will find one of these two. I don't know exactly, what the AI stuff would be. I'm gonna test actually splitting it up. I'm gonna do a bill for 200 and one for 280 for 80 for 0.89 to see if maybe somehow it'll say, hey, maybe these two could be potential matches. So let's see. So let's see if there's any actual real AI going on here. So let's see, $100 flat. We'll date this on the 5th. Click on save, and then I'll duplicate this bill and change the dollar amount. Again, as long as it's within that date range that I showed you earlier. Now you got two bills that the sum of them two could be a match, and this is where like AI, I would expect AI to grab two bills and say, okay, it could be this potential two bills. So let's see if AI does anything. Okay, it doesn't seem like it does it at this level. Okay, but if I click on find other matches, it's going to find other matches. It should take me to the classic match screen where it will, in this screen, it will do the AI suggested matches. So see right here, the two bills. So if I click on those two bills, it'll select the two bills because it knows that the sum of those two bills could be a match. So you do have the AI activated here. This is not necessarily new. I've seen QuickBooks do this before, but now it has the sort of the magic AI logo. So some stuff is actually sort of happening in the background, suggesting potential matches. So I like that. That's actually really, really good. I think that's useful. But if you don't like any of those things as matches, like if you don't think any of these are actual matches, you can just click on categorize, and that's where it kind of behaves like a toggle. See, now it does behave like a toggle because there's things going on both sides. And then you do get a little bit of that sort of toggle feel. And then in this case, for example, it's saying, look, it's suggesting bank service charges based on, maybe uh, something in the memo. Now I actually don't know what this is. I have no idea. But it's suggesting bank service charges. Maybe it's correct, maybe it's not correct. I really don't know. But this is the AI stuff that's going on here, which is suggesting the particular category, right? So it actually gives you that little multicolored box that's letting you know that's an AI thing. Okay, the other thing that you will see here is, and let me just do the full screen one more time, is that this is suggesting that the vendor should be Apple. Like I don't know why it's suggesting Apple in this case. It's actually not correct. It says IOF Forrester, so I really don't know. But it's suggesting Apple, and then it says here this is the potential vendor name. I don't know. AI is kind of like unpredictable. So if that's not the vendor name, you can click on the drop down menu, and then it does suggest a potential vendor name. That's not even close to accurate either. But you can suggest a quick vendor name creation. Although this quick vendor name creation is actually pretty neat. sometimes. Like this was an example where it didn't do anything. But let's say, for example, one that might be better. Let's see, sort these by bank description. So let's see, we have Apple Card, for example. So if I click here, is okay, it keeps suggesting the name of the credit card user. So that's actually not good. Then we have this one called Auto Loan, and this is suggesting automotive loan company. That's actually not bad. That's the name of the vendor in my sample file. So that's actually a pretty good um, that's actually a pretty good thing, although it's thinking is insurance, even though an auto loan is not insurance, but it's close. It's close. I mean, what I like, it gives you a little logo letting you know that it's trying to do some guesswork. And here, Best Buy, that's actually definitely wrong, right? It's suggesting car and truck expenses. So that's the thing about um, about AI. It's just random, um, just very random, and it's probably because there's a word auto somewhere. Maybe auto pay. Yeah, right here, auto pay. So because the memo said auto pay or automatic payment, that's really automatic payment. It thinks is an automatic in an automobile expense. So it does show you here categorization history. So like I've used this vendor before, Best Buy, and it shows you where you have used the vendor in the past, and it has been advertising expenses. So even though it's suggesting car and truck expense based on the memo, it is suggesting based on past actual manual history from the users, myself categorizing stuff, is suggested to use advertising expense. Now, that's not correct, but I'm saying I actually did 2 transactions where I picked that category. So you click on select category, and then it changes it to advertising expense. So that's actually pretty neat how that interacts. Even though the AI was kind of off, I actually like the way that interacts. And then we go down here to where it says post, and then you can split, create, rule, exclude. That's all available here. And also categorization history opens up the classic categorization history screen. But what's really neat about this huge upgrade, they went from 12 months to 24 months. So that's actually great. They were listening to users in that one. So that's cool. So how you actually see, the AI try, the categorization history suggests you get to see a little bit of everything from the screen, which I like. Okay, so we covered the new terminology, and we covered the categorization history expanded and new vendors on the fly. Let's see if we can get new vendors on the fly to work correctly, maybe with a better vendor name. So let me switch to another bank account here. Let's see if we get a better example. So right here, so we have a vendor name by Perfect Choice R. Okay, that's the name of the vendor, obviously. That's really cool. You put your cursor over area these, and you get to see the full bank text. So if you don't explicitly use the option to show the full bank text, because you have the option to show the full bank text instead of showing the sort of the short version. Um, but if you choose for QuickBooks to kind of clean up that pay for you, which is not always a great idea, but you can hover over it and it gives you the full description. So that context could be useful. And then here, it's actually suggesting a different vendor name. I'm not sure if that's correct. And when you click on the drop-down menu, it says here suggested vendor name. So that's actually not that good. Let's see if this one suggests the actual vendor name. Okay, so this was actually really good. That's the actual real vendor name. So that's actually a good suggestion. So then that's the really cool thing. So you can click on that drop down and click on add the vendor name. So it speeds up the process of creating vendor names. So that's pretty good. Again, the problem is it's not always very accurate, right? And there's also a lot of like things going on here. So one of the things you can do is we can click show amount as spent and received. Just click on that so we get a single column with positives and negatives, and then I can get rid of these 2 things here, which I'll turn back on in a second. If I can turn on files, turn off files, requests, and just kind of have less data in it, so it's a little bit easier to navigate. Okay, we have more space to work on these things. So let's say this one. Okay, that one's actually pretty good. That's actually the vendor name. If you actually hover over it and you see who was paid, So that's actually pretty good. Let me see this one and click on the drop down. There it is. So it's some of the automatic suggestions are working pretty well. Again, this stuff is probably going to get better as time goes by. Here's another one that's pretty good. So there's going to be some triangulation of the suggestions from the AI and and you kind of like fixing some of it, like this one, for example, the perfect choice one that's using the wrong vendor name, right? So it should have been this thing, perfect choice R, right? So should have picked that up somehow. That should have been the text. So when you go create a new vendor, in here, this vendor side, if you actually type that, then you click on add, right? After you type it, right? So I actually had to copy and paste, which is a little bit annoying, but you will have to be doing that sometimes. Just kind of like go back in there and suggest it because the AI is not perfect. So that's really cool on the adding vendors on the fly. We covered categorization history, full bank description over the tooltip. The hidden split, that's what I meant, that the split is hidden in this drop-down menu. But recently, which I actually really like, is they added the split button down here. This is actually really important, right? So that's not hidden anymore. It used to be hidden. Now they added the post, create rule, and exclude. They brought those buttons out for people to use them. So actually, don't even to cover this anymore, which is great. Okay, I'm going to talk about upload PDF statements. So if you are familiar with the way QuickBooks works, is you create an account, bank, credit card, and then you click on link account, and then you log in, right? If you don't have a direct login access, or maybe the account is closed, the only way to upload data is if you have it on a spreadsheet or if you have it in something called a .qbo file. But sometimes we have the statements in a PDF. So let me pull up an example of that. So we'll have a statement that looks like this, right? Something that was printed from the bank, but QuickBooks won't, or historically QuickBooks wouldn't know how to read this stuff. Like you would have to have an actual digital file. So what's really cool now is you can actually upload your PDF statements to download the transaction. So you can go to right here, it says upload from file. And now when you upload, you now have a upload drop down where, I mean, drag and drop where you can just drag and drop these PDF statements and you can choose the bank account that you want to upload to. Okay, so whatever bank account you want to upload it to. So whichever one happens to be the one that you want to have. And they'll actually read the statement and extract the data from the statement. It's like 99% accurate, but it's pretty good. So I invite you to test out that PDF upload system and put in the comments, if that was useful for you, because I know there's going to be cases of cases where some uploads work better than others, and the technology would just continue to get better. I'm going to turn on a feature I had recently turned off, which is these files and request more info. What's cool about this is you can upload attachments on the fly here. So you click on the little plus sign, pull up an attachment you have in your computer, click on the plus sign, pull up an attachment on the computer, and it's great, right? So it's a really, really fast way for you to be uploading your your uh, your attachments on the fly as you categorize them. So that's pretty neat. And this other one's called the client collaborator. It's actually pretty interesting, particularly with like accountants and end users. So for example, let's say I don't know what this is, right? Like I never heard of this account before, 6659. And I click on this little plus sign and just X out of that. And then I can ask someone else. I can ask, let's say I'm the accountant, I can ask the business owner, say, what is account 665? I can say, is it a personal account? Okay. And then I can go to add to request list. And basically it becomes a list of outstanding questions that I have for a different user. So here it says request. I go to request and it gives me a list of all the transactions that I have flagged with questions. Okay. And there's ways to add alerts and stuff like that. So it's pretty interesting as well. So here's the transaction, right? Here's the original transaction, the dollar amount, the source account, and then my question. And then the other person, so imagine like someone else is actually in this chat and adding text. Here in the drop-down menu, you can copy the magic link, and let me show you. I can imagine that this is like on the client side or a different user, where you just send them that link and they're looking at this here, and then they can answer quickly here. So they can say, no, it's not a personal account, or yes, it's a personal account. It pre-fills the text for you, like AI. So you can click on that, pre-fills the text for you. So it reads that for you and tries to figure out are there ways to make it easier for the user to interact. And also the user can upload something, right? So the Intuit Assist says, thanks for letting me know it's not personal. To properly categorize, could you please clarify what account 6659 is? So the AI is anticipating the questions that would arise from this interaction. So you don't have to wait for like the accountant to read that's not personal to answer. So let's say I'm still the user, and I'm gonna say that is Mark's bank account. Okay, so I'll be very generic and put that's Mark's bank account, right? Let's see if Intuit Assist knows to ask something more like who the heck is Mark, right? So thanks for the clarification. Is Mark, what's the purpose of this? I say he is a contract or something like that, right? Um, so again, the chat tries to do as much as possible. So to properly categorize, could you please clarify the purpose? Let's say for contractor purposes. So I'm literally using the AI, and the AI is interacting with the user, which is pretty awesome. So thank you for the information that I need. Okay, cool. So now, there's a full chat here on this side. I'm actually going to switch over to like my side, hit refresh. So then I can actually see the whole interaction that happened. I only asked this question, and then the user had this entire interaction with the chat. So that's pretty awesome. And then now I gotta categorize it, right? So there's no sort of easy way to like categorize from here, unfortunately. Like it would be really cool for the AI assist to actually suggest a category to the accountant or whoever's dealing with this, but there's actually no way to like do that. I can only mark it complete. So I would have to like read this and go, oh, okay, I see what it is. Then go back into banking, and then come in here and create the vendor, right? So mark whatever. So it would be really cool if the AI would ask for the last name, and then me as on the other side to say, hey, should I create the vendor for you? And then suggest, contractor or something like that, right? So whatever category would make the most sense. There isn't a contractor account, but I would create the contractor expense account on the fly here. So that's where I see that didn't work. So that's where I foresee at some point for this sort of AI-driven categorization to work to also speed up the process and communications between accountant and user, and then you were just posted there. So it's pretty neat. And again, what's really awesome is that these are the really early stages of this on this client collaborator. Now, this other one's really neat, how to reconcile bank statements. I don't think it's there yet, but the first step is pretty interesting. So when you go to reconcile, so let's say we're going to go um, click on the reconcile screen. Generally, when you go reconcile, you go through the process where you put a beginning balance and ending balance. Like you do this manually, but you can upload the bank statement. So let's just grab the same PDF statement that we kind of discussed earlier. You can upload it, and it'll read the information from the statement, extract some of the data, and then attempt to do some of the reconciliation for you. So beginning balances, ending balances, ending date. I'll try to read that stuff for you and kind of walk you through the process. So I invite you to test that out and I'll make a different video on this because this is a whole thing. But that's something that's really, really interesting that was introduced with the new AI tools. Okay, now let's move on to this new section called the Customer Hub, which is really, really interesting. So let's go back here to the apps, and I'm gonna go into Customer Hub, and now we got a bunch of things here that seem new. So let's go into Overview, and Overview is like customers at glance. So things going on with your customer, um, open leads, estimates, contracts, open projects, unpaid invoices. Some of this stuff is old, right? So like an open project, that's an old concept. Unpaid invoices, an old concept. Now this reviews, that's a new concept. Contracts, that's a new concept, and leads is a new concept. So these are three new concepts added to this customer hub. So first is we got leads. So leads essentially is a way for you to either add a manual lead. So I can go to add lead and put, let's say, John Smith, whatever it is, and Smith, let's say that's john.com or whatever. Okay. Let's put a phone number. Okay, there we go. So we have a lead created. So they're not in my customer system. They're just a profile in the lead. There's nothing much we can do. There's no conversion from lead to customer, which I'm hoping they do at some point, where you click a button and it converts it into customer. At this point, you can just only edit it, enter an email, a phone number, that sort of thing. Okay, so it's just a bunch of leads. Now, if you connect your Gmail and click on import leads from Gmail, and you go through the process of connecting your Gmail account, which I'm going to do, I'm going to show you how it can bring in leads from your Gmail. So let me just go through the connection process and kind of show you how that works. So it's going to be a process. It's going to read I don't know if it reads all your emails or the most recent emails, but essentially what it's doing is it's going through your email, and it's going to see if anyone that has written to you matches a customer in your customer list, and then read that email and see if the email is requesting work. Essentially how it is. Actually super interesting. So I'll go through the process really quick to kind of walk you through, give you a general idea. So I'm going to go into customers here, and I'm going to create a new customer. I'm going to go to new customer, and I'm going to call this customer, let's do Hector at qbk.com. That's my email. And then this would be, let's say, Hector Lopez. Okay. So we have Hector Lopez, and I'm creating him with my email. Then what I'll do is I'll send an email. I'll send an email from my email address. Let's just switch over to my email address. I send it into the Gmail that I have hooked up to QuickBooks, so you can kind of see how this will work. And I'm gonna say new work. I'm gonna say I need a new vanity replacement for my master. Just gonna simplify, kind of like emulate an email from a customer, and then click on send. And essentially, what this is supposed to do is, I'm just gonna refresh here so you see that the email comes in. So there's the email sitting in my Gmail. And essentially what this is going to do is it's going to read this email. It's literally going to read it, and it's going to place it into a queue for work. So we go back into leads here. Now this takes up a while to read. I don't think I'll be able to actually have it by the time I'm creating this video, have it do all that. But I'm going to show you, I'm going to kind of simulate the way that lead will come in and the way the sort of the invoices or the estimates could be created. So I'm kind of skipping a step here because it does need to read your email first and then detect it and that sort of thing. But I'm just going to show you what the interaction might look like. Is imagine that you are that you have the text coming in like this, right? In the email, and then it's going to read it, extract the data from the email. The email could be a very long email with a lot of details and moving parts. And then it's going to try to determine from it, like, who's the customer, what does the person need? And notice it picked up the customer from my customer list because, because of the signature in this case, but it would have done it because of the email. And then down here, it picked up, we have a product called vanity fixtures. So it just, again, in this case, it just guessed, of course. But if I have more than one item, it guessed. Right? It's AI. It could do the best it could do. But and it wrote in the new vanity replacement for the master bathroom. So it read substantial amount of information from the email and tried to create the estimates for you or the leads for you. So that's the stuff that's going to really, really speed up a lot of workflows, right? So that's kind of like what the lead system is. And again, when you first connect it, it might take hours for it to like read and find the leads. But I fast tracked into into a point where you kind of see it work work itself live, where it's picking up stuff from the email itself to figure things out. I'm going to show you contracts. As contracts is really neat. So you go into contracts here, and let's say you have a contract that you want somebody to sign. You click on create contract, and then I'm going to select the customer. Let's say Hector Lopez right here. Click on continue. I can upload the document, right? So I'm just going to grab, let's see, I'm going to grab that same statement, although that's technically not a contract. But I'm going to use that as the example. Grab that, and just kind of imagine that's a contract. That's for a second, just imagine that's a contract. Okay. And then I can pick, after I look at it, I can pick where I want the signature, right? So I'm going to say, I can put a code, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I can also add a signature. So when I go into next, I pick where the signature goes. So I click and drag and say, you know what, this signature goes here, and then the date goes here, and then maybe they gotta put the position or something here, right? So again, imagine an actual contract in there. You go to preview document, and you kind of see where the signature goes. Then you click on next, and then you click on send, and then there's pre-written text for you here, which you can change, and there's a bunch of options in terms of reminders, and there's an access code that you have to give the person because it's a secure document, right? So I'm gonna hit that, click on send, and then I'm gonna go into my email, like so you can see exactly what it looks like, and it says action needed by Hector Lopez. Please review your documents. And then you got signature requests. Garcia Wholesales LLC is requesting a signature. I click on review. Should ask me for a code. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because I password protected. Click on verify. There's my contract, so to speak. Click on that. Do Lopez. It's really awesome. Sign, and then add text here. So let's say CEO, whatever it is. And then click on send. I don't know why the date didn't show up. Maybe it shows up on the other side. So let me go back into QuickBooks here, and it's on send status. So I'm going to click on refresh, see if it updates to signed. There you go, completed. So I click on download here, and I should be able to get a PDF. And I get a e-signature verification. Awesome. And then I get the document with, there you go, with the signature. They added the date automatically and the text that I added to it. So it's amazing, right? So actually kind of flawless, right? So it's obviously not going to be as powerful as like the digital signature apps are out there that have been doing this for years, but this first version of it, it's amazing. Then we got schedule an appointment. That's really interesting too. So when you go into appointments, you can set your availability. So let's say I'm on Eastern time, and I'm available Monday, Wednesday, Friday only, and then Saturday only for a couple hours, whatever it is. So I can set the availability, and then I can go to schedule appointment, select the customer. So let's say this is Hector. Okay. And I can say, we need to discuss the contract or whatever, right? Then I click on send invite. Okay. And then if I go into the email, again, pretending to be, I guess, the customer. Okay. Schedule an appointment. So there we go. Schedule an appointment. Click on that. Then it's going to have my available dates, and I just pick them. Now, what I didn't see, so that's actually pretty awesome. The customer can schedule appointments with you. What I didn't see, I did see that they have like a platform, like their own platform for a video call. So it's like a Intuit Zoom type of thing. I don't even have time to like cover like the features on that, but it has its own video conferencing tool, so to speak. So that's like way beyond the scope of what accounting software is supposed to be. But you can kind of see how they're getting into this stuff, into like helping business owners do a lot of stuff. Now, what I can't tell, again, as I mentioned earlier, I can't tell a way of like, oh, there you go, manage calendar connection. So okay, so there is a Google Calendar connect. I won't get into that, but it looks like there's a way to connect your Google Calendar. So pretty awesome. So that's going to be very, very helpful. I don't see a way to like have different team members, right? So I don't know if like every person that logs into QuickBooks has his own appointment system or to view everybody's appointments. So I don't see that. And it'll be nice to be able to put up like a paywall or an invoice attached to the appointment. So they pay the invoice, then they get to do the appointment. That would be pretty awesome, especially for people like me that do, you know, services in that fashion. And then we got reviews. Reviews is really interesting. What you do is you enable feedback. So I'm going to go into the settings here. And then there is a setting where you can enable all these features, referrals, reviews, work requests, a bunch of multiple things. And then there's some notes here, so you kind of see how this works, how the testimonials and that stuff works. But what happens is once you send an invoice to a customer, you have the option to ask him for feedback. And then the feedback comes in, or let's just go back into that screen. Then in the review section, the feedback comes in, and then you get to see what the customer said, what kind of feedback they gave you, the ratings, like 4 stars, 5 stars, and then you can manage stuff in there. So that could all be attached to invoices. Now I don't know the exact process in which that happens, if it happens automatically or behind the scenes. Let's see if I pick an invoice here. Let's see. I pick one of these invoices. Is there a okay? That one's paid in full. I wonder if okay, there's send reminders to customers. So there's payment reminders. I just don't. It's not clear to me how you send like okay, give me feedback on this, right? So I don't know if there's an actual button that you press or if it happens automatically. It's all pretty new. It would be pretty awesome if you could like pick and choose which customers you want to request feedback from. So I don't know exactly how like what triggers the feedback, that sort of thing. But from my understanding is, you know, from from actual transactions. So we'll see more about that at some point in the future once I get more clarity around that. So that's Customer Hub. One last minute thing I wanted to add to the video is this concept of customer level custom fields. So as part of this new Customer Hub new feature, you can actually add more custom fields to your customer profile. So when you go look at your custom fields, there is a hard limitation. For example, in QuickBooks Online Plus, you can do a maximum of 4 custom fields for a specific transaction. But if you create the custom fields in the customer profile, so you go to add field and you make it a customer level custom field, not a transaction level, but a customer level custom field. So I'll type here custom field 3 or something like that. And it could even be a drop down, right? So like it could be, customer uh, type A or customer type B, right? Whatever information that you are tracking um, at the customer level, and you can even put color coding in it. This is to replace, everything that they've been getting rid of with the tags. So any customer level custom fields, again, you can do up to 30 across all SKUs, which is pretty amazing. And the way that works is when you go into your customers and you are editing any attribute from a particular customer. So let's say I want to go edit my customer and I go to edit, there's an area here at the bottom somewhere where you can have your custom fields. So like for example, here's the one that I created here, and then let's just put here hello, goodbye, or whatever. Okay, so we're tracking specific data about the customer, maybe a date of birth, maybe the type of customer that they are, maybe where they came from, what type of business you do with them, whatever customer information you wanna track at the customer level. You can now track it with these custom fields, and then when you go look at your customer list, you can click on the little gear menu and you can turn all these things on, all these custom fields, so now you can see them in your grid. You'll be able to clearly see them, and some of this is replacing again the tags that were actually weren't even related to the customer level; those were related to the transactions. But this is kind of the manifestation of Intuit receiving some feedback that that customers want to be able to track more specific information about their customers. So again, you can, as part of this expansion, you can create, you will have a limitation in QBO Plus. You can do most 4 transaction level, but you can do 30 customer level custom fields. So the next set of features I want to talk about is reports. So they added on in advance only this concept of KPIs and financial summary, and also I think both Plus and Advanced got insights inside the regular reports. So I'm kind of going to show you that. So I'm going to go into reports, and I'm going to go into standard reports, and then I'm going to open a profit and loss report. So the first thing I'm going to show you is called insights, which basically you're looking at the regular report here, and then you see a little button up here that says insights. You click on that, and it tells you whether or not there's insights on the report. So if I go to, let's say, last month, and then it goes through to see if there's any interesting insights. Okay, no insights on this. Let's say last year. So again, it just sometimes it'll pick up an insight, sometimes it won't. So it's not picking any insights on this one particularly. Now, for the sake of being able to do the example, I switched company files to one that actually is showing some insights. So for example, I'm running the P&L here, and it says right here, 2 insights beta. So I click on that and I get 2 pieces of insight. So it looks like from May to June, there was an increase of 75% for a particular income account. And from May to June, there was a decrease of a particular expense by $1,536. So that's basically the AI going in the background and reading some numbers and trying to find some potentially actionable advice for the user. Now, if I click on any of these, I kind of get a drill down. I get this little graph that kind of shows me that account cycle. What it's doing is doing anomaly detection. They're calling this the accounting agent. I don't love the name. I just don't like a name which implies that accountants can be replaced by machines. But anyway, that's a different conversation. But it's called the accounting agent, and it's doing its anomaly detection. And then it kind of gives you some brief narrative here about the potential um, sources. But you can download a full detailed report, which is really awesome, and you get this anomaly detection reports, a PDF. It's pretty detailed, where it gives you the summary, the same summary you saw, but then a detailed analysis with some potential transactions that could be the culprit, right? So this is like the two just pointing things at you to help you analyze and figure out these anomalies. And this is version 1. This stuff is going to get really advanced really quick. You can also click on the specific account name, an amount. There's a little symbol, the little sparkles there, kind of so you can click directly in that. So you don't have to go to insights at the top. You can just click on the specific number in which they're adding these notes for, and you can add this detailed report. So some company files show it, some don't. It really depends on whether or not the accounting agent, so to speak, is detecting anomalies or not. But I'll demo financial summary, which does have insights. So when you go into reports, it's up here. It says, I generated a financial summary for June to give you key insights on finances. So this is actually a more comprehensive approach than the insights. So this one's a little bit different. This one actually creates a whole report for the previous month. So I'm recording this in July. So this is for June. So first it goes to performance highlights, and it gives you narrative. So income averaged 27,000 monthly from January to June, but there's a slight, decrease from previous uh, period. Then, narrative on cost of goods sold, on cash flow, gross profit, net income. So significant increase in June for accounts payable. So great little summaries. And if I click on any of these, it goes straight into like a graph. And I can go into any of these graphs specifically and click on drill down on this insight. And then you'll get on the left hand side, you get like this almost like a chat bot, kind of telling you that there's a couple of ways um, that you can break down or drill this down. So you pick one of the options that is there, and I'm assuming that it only gives you the options for things that make sense. So here's my top expenses. Let's say, for example, let's go look at, let's say, expenses here, total expense. Let's drill down total expense. and then it gives me expense by vendor. So we'll click on that, and then it'll break down and give me expenses by vendor. Here's some more narrative on each one. So it's actually a really, really interesting report. Some sort of high level numbers here from the balance sheet, cash flow trend. Really, really cool. I like it. And then there's a print button here and that creates a nice printable dashboard as well, which is really cool. So that's the financial summary that we covered, and I want to show you KPIs, which is only available in advance. So when I click on reports and then I go down to KPIs, it's actually pretty interesting. So you pick the date range here that you want to see, and I could zoom in as well, just like in the other screens, the control period. I can zoom in. I can do, let's say, last month, and then it gives me a couple things here. So we have growth and profitability, and then we have comparisons. So I can compare it to previous year or previous period. So I got both options here for comparing. So either one. And then category, I can unselect all, show nothing, and say, you know what, just show me the growth KPIs, which is basically revenue, cost of goods sold, and total expenses, and you kind of get to see the variance. And then you have the profitability KPIs, which are gross profit margin, operating margin, and you can kind of see how you're doing this year versus the previous year, or this month versus the previous month. So you get to compare, and then there's this thing called action view, which I'm not sure what it is. It's just basically just looking at a graph of each one, probably just kind of taking a look at the trends. I assume that at some point it will give you like a call to action, like, hey, increase your profit by doing this, or try doing this, or try doing that. It's pretty interesting. There's also a couple of little configurators here for the report. You can make it a little tight, a little roomier. You can also pick and choose which columns you want to see. Again, not a lot of options, but that's there. And then some of the filters that are available. Again, not that much stuff available now. This is kind of like version 1 of this KPI thing, but it's pretty good. It's a pretty good start. And again, I think this is only available in advance. Now, one thing that I really like, this kind of a hidden feature they added, is the ability to change the section titles. So I'll go back and run a regular report, and this was available in classic reports, but they recently added it to the modern report. So when you go into general options and you scroll down, there's this thing called edit section titles. So I can change this to revenue. I can make it all uppercase too. So revenue, and I can change it cost cost of sales, and then I can call this expenses or operating expenses maybe. Okay, so I get a lot of control about how I want to call these major categories, right? Because maybe the way you work is you need you need better names, right? So you could change the way these titles on the reports show up, which I really like. And it's not permanent, so it's for this report only, so you can save it. But you could always go back and edit the section titles and change that. So I really like that a lot. It's useful. Actually, I'm gonna go back and not save it. Just want to double check if I go back and run a P&L, if those titles stick. Yeah, no, they don't. They don't stick. They don't stick, and you gotta go back and change them again unless you save the report. If you save the report, or you customize it, I assume that sticks. So really interesting. And then also that review can also be accessed through the P&L. So that's the same report or the same dashboard I kind of showed you already, but it could be accessed both to the report screen and the P&L. So let's move on to um, the estimates and invoices. And I kind of cover this autofill with notes, where you can autofill the estimate. So I actually covered that on an earlier section. You can also, I really like this, you can upload bills and expenses using a QR code. I particularly like this because sometimes I may not have a scanner. And then what I want to do is I want to take a picture of the information that's going to go into a bill, instead of using a scanning it and having the code there. So I like the fact that I can toggle to images, and then I can use my phone and I can take a picture of that QR code, and then the app on the phone. I'll just do that really quick here, and it opens up an app on my phone that's like a QuickBooks app that I can use to take a picture of the receipts, and I don't have to log in or anything. I just click on upload image or scan photo or upload document. So I can use my phone as my scanner, all sort of while I am on QuickBooks on my laptop, which is pretty awesome. I think that's super smart, the way they did that, because sometimes it's just kind of a pain to take a picture, transfer it to the computer. So now it can all work sort of seamlessly, and you could also upload, a receipt or a bill or something, and it'll read that, and based on that, it'll pre-fill some of the information that would go into a bill or in an expense. So that's actually pretty cool. I think the QR code one really is what uh, what uh, what was innovative. And then payments and estimates. So pretty soon, my QuickBooks file doesn't have it now, but they made the announcement that you can create an estimate, and then you can receive payments on the estimate. So you create an estimate for a customer, and then there will be a button down here where you can get a payment or a prepayment on an estimate. So you don't have to create the invoice yet to get a payment on it. So my file doesn't have it yet, but I'm pretty sure it'll come out soon. So that's pretty neat. I don't know how the application of payment happens afterwards. I'm going to make the assumption that after you receive a payment against an estimate, and the estimate gets created into an invoice, that somehow magically the invoice payment gets applied to it automatically. So I'm going to make the assumption of that. My file doesn't have it yet, so I can't showcase it, but that's all going to be part of the whole new QuickBooks Online. Let's take a look at projects. Okay, it's actually two really cool features. One is the updated cost rate screen. I actually like this a lot. So if you use projects, and let's say you don't have QuickBooks Payroll. So let me open projects here, and you're tracking employee labor. So when you go here to manage settings, you click on set cost rate, and then every one of your employees, you have this grid format where you can you have the pay rate, from payroll or from the profile, and then you can add more or less how much they cost you in benefits per hour, and then you add the concept of a burden rate. So it's just a really easy linear way to add your taxes, your benefits, your insurance, your overhead into a new uh, cost rate. So like this employee is 67.83. So then when I go and track time for that employee, but again, let's say that we don't run payroll, like we're just tracking time for this employee, and then I go here and go to track time, and I'm gonna grab this. Okay, I gotta pick Deborah Wood. Let's see, so she is here. So now her cost rate is 67.83. So I pick the project, whatever the project is, and the number of hours. So now the cost of this employee is 8 times 67.83. So then when I'm gonna look at this project cost. Let's go into my projects. Go into projects here, and then I pick that specific project. Then you see that my costs here are that the cost rate plus, or times the hours. So if you don't run payroll in QuickBooks, that's okay. You can run timesheets, and with that updated cost screen, it's going to be super easy for you to track your labor costs for your projects, even if you don't run payroll inside QuickBooks. That's pretty awesome. This new updated cost rate screen. And also has a really cool feature called upload project notes. So I'm actually going to go into projects here and show you. I'm going to create a new project. I'm going to go to new project. Okay, and then now you can upload data. Let's say you have an email or a contract or something like that. you can upload data, then it'll pre-fill that for you. So I'm in the new projects page here, and I'm gonna go to upload this for the device, and I'm gonna upload a document. So just for context, let me just show you what the document looks like. So let's say this is a document that contract, right? So it contains a bunch of information about the job, beginning date, end date, some details, and I'll literally read the contract for you and try to figure out what it should create in the project name. So it automatically added the start date, end date. It picked the customer because it was in the contract. It picked the project name. So that's actually pretty cool. Like it just reads stuff from a contract. So right now that's 4 fields, 5 fields, including the notes. Actually, that's not bad. It read from the notes. Actually, that part's probably the most interesting part of it at all, where you can, from a long contract kind of extrapolate what could go in it. But once you start adding, once it's like it could create like an estimate from the project, from the contract, that would be actually super interesting. But that's a really, really good start. Perfect, right? So I just created a project for me from a contract. So super, super cool, super interesting. And then we can start the estimate process. But again, I don't think it's going to pick up a whole bunch from it. Well, I guess we'll try. We'll pull up that contract and see what it'll pull up from it. But that was just for the project creation process. So they're adding this type of features everywhere, right? Where you can read documents and then figure things out for you. So this is actually pretty quick. And then look, it says, it's the project. It picked this up and said, should we create a new product, or you want to pick it from the drop-down menu of products? So that's actually not bad. So you go to continue, create a new product on the fly, and it just brings in, it starts the process of creating the product for you. Again, by bringing the product name and then the description. So pretty good. I mean, it's, again, not perfect, but it could save me a lot of time, especially if I'm creating a new product. Um, if I don't have to select it from it, I don't know what happened with the product didn't get selected, but or maybe I didn't click save properly, but it added the description, so not bad. I guess that's that part they have to fix where you change the drop down, you kind of lose a description, but you saw that it did some heavy lifting. Again, not super duper impressive for now, but it can at least pick up some of the information and speed up that process of project creation. Again, at some point, creating the estimate too. There's two other things I want to show that are part of these new updates. One is in the chart of accounts. Let me open up the chart of accounts here. Is that the chart of accounts now next to each account type, there's a little symbol that says BAL or P&L, where basically it tells you whether or not, or if that account is from the P&L or the balance sheet. I like that a lot. I think, can you turn that off? Yeah, I think, yeah, right here. So show account type badges. If you turn that off, you don't see it. A lot of accountants don't need to know that. So they kind of got frustrated that they just added that in there, but that's fine. I think small business owners could learn a lot from this process. But what's really cool about this is that there's a filter. So you can just show the P&L accounts or just show the balance sheet accounts. I think that's great, particularly valuable to be able to do back and forth. It'll be cool if you could do more, like you could just see the income account or just the expense account or just the banks or just the AR or whatever. So it'll be pretty cool. But at least just being able to filter by seeing just P&L and just balance sheet, that's that's really great. I think it's a really great step forward. So that's really cool. And the last thing that I'll discuss is this new concept of copy transactions. Um, so when you look at a transaction, so I'm going to look at an invoice for a second. There's a possibility that, maybe I created this invoice, but it didn't mean to be an invoice. And I went in there and I have a lot of details in here. I have quantity, I have products and services, I have descriptions, and that would just take me way too long. So there's a concept where some transactions, again, not all work like that. Like this one doesn't have a clean copy to. It has this one called make a copy, which that just creates a duplicate. But then it has this create a credit memo, which is pretty good because you go from invoice to credit memo. But in other transaction types, actually, this wasn't a good example with the invoice. Let's let's do a different transaction type. Let me do expenses. I think expenses is a better example. So let me pick up a transaction that's already created. there's a copy button here. So when you click on copy, that's not duplicate. That's a duplicate, but also duplicate into another transaction type. So copy into a bill. So if you want the check really to be a bill, or you want the check to be a credit memo, or you want the check to be an invoice. I don't know how that works, but or a journal entry. So what it does is it creates a transaction. It copies some of the information. So this one didn't make any sense. Expenses to invoices, of course, doesn't make a lot of sense. So that's why that didn't do anything really. But for transactions that make more sense, like they're all essentially the same transaction type, like they're both expenses. So I can go from check, look, there's a lot of details here, copy that and turn that into a bill, for example. Click on copy. So this would be a good example where you have everything that was in that check now duplicated into a bill. So there could be reasons why you want it one way or the other, or go from bill to, let's say, expense, or or kind of transactions that would make sense. Let's say for journal entry. Let's see if that does anything actually. Does it make a whole? Okay. So it copies the data, not the debits and the credits, but it copied description and the account. So I think these are really interesting step forward, because never before you had the ability to copy contents from one transaction type to the other. So that's it, for the new QuickBooks Online. One thing I do want to show you, some of these things can be turned off. They're in the gear menu, and this is only temporarily, so probably won't last a couple more months. But you can switch back to the previous experience, click on switch, and then you don't get this new apps sort of menu system, and you go back to the old way. I don't have a copy of the old one anymore, but you go back to the old way if you want to. And then in the banking also has a switch to preview. So some of the screens have a switch to previous version, switch to classic. Like the reports, for example, there's some reports you can switch to classic. So so you still have a chance in the next couple months to switch back to the old way. But I'm telling you, even though I don't like change when I'm not the one that creates it, when change is created on top of me, because it really messes up with my muscle memory and kind of like the way I know where everything is and where I click. Um, but some of the changes are really positive. I think they're moving in a positive direction. The new AI stuff, in the banking side is kind of hit and miss, but in other places you kind of do see it evolve. And I got to tell you, if you want to continue to be a QuickBooks customer, or to use QuickBooks, or support people with QuickBooks, you're gonna have to keep up, because this is the first major big change that they've done in many years. And with the pace of development of all the other applications I have seen, this stuff is going to move super fast. Now, I did say I was going to talk about RightTool for a minute. So let me do that real quick. I want to go to righttool.app, which is our website. It's a tool that I helped develop. We're gonna download the free tool, and basically just click on the link on the website, and then there should be a button here that says remove from Chrome, or add to Chrome if you haven't added it yet. So then once you click on add to Chrome, and it says remove from Chrome, that means it's added. You go back into QuickBooks and you restart or refresh, and then all of a sudden you're gonna see the right tool show up on the right navigation bar, and you have a lot of stuff in here, and I'll link to other videos on RightTool, but you can create also your own custom bookmarks. You can go into the settings and see all the features are in here. There's a free version of RightTool, there's a pro version of RightTool that adds a lot of batching stuff. And RightTool is amazing, not just because I help develop it. It's because a lot of the things that QuickBooks is doing and is adding, they're drawing a lot of inspiration from RightTool. So we're kind of one step ahead of the developers in many ways, but we're in the cutting edge. We're always creating new things to enhance the QuickBook experience, such as having your own fixed bookmarks pane. So even though that left navigation bar went away, right tool didn't. So you still can use the familiar interface with a fixed navigation bar, that you get with RightTool. And there's a whole bunch of other features that it has. Again, I'll put links in the description to everything that RightTool does. It has over 100 features. But if you haven't gotten into it yet, just download it. I'll put a link to the description. I'll put a link in the description to where you can download the free version, and then later on, as you start discovering what the pro version does, you can upgrade to that. Last thing I want to do is I want to give you kind of like my honest opinion about this whole thing. At first, hated it. I thought it was counterproductive. It was slow, and to be fair, it's still kind of slow. They're working through the kinks of speed. Um, I don't like when they move my stuff, but the more and more I play with it, and the more and more I see it evolve, I'm actually net liking the evolution of QuickBooks. I think um, especially power users are going to appreciate having a lot of these features at their disposal. One thing that Intuit really needs to do, especially for accountants and power users, they need to give us the ability to pick and choose which things get automated, which don't, where AI kicks in, where AI doesn't. One of the things that accountants particularly hate is things happening behind the scenes before them knowing, because they feel that a mess is happening and they're going to have to work double to clean it up. So that's the one thing that Intuit is missing for power users, is give us the ability to pick and choose what changes we want, and we kind of adapt them at our own pace. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and all the links are in the description. I'll see you in the next one.